So what I have tonight is legislative request to appropriate $53,900 within the capital improvement fund to enter into a contract with Smith Roofing to replace the water park pool roof. Okay. Then with that, I have a legislative request to appropriate an amount not to exceed $21,000 within the capital improvement fund to install and purchase a skylight for the water park roof. So there'll be two separate ordinances for that. The original estimate was $81,000. We think that this project is going to come in around $74,000. So we will save around $7,000. 21,000, not to exceed $21,000, and then that'll give us leeway to go out and get a couple estimates.
What was the original bid? 80 what?
The original price we thought the project would cost was $81,000. It looks like the project is going to come in somewhere around $74,000, $74,500, somewhere in that area. Keith had the bids, and you'll announce those tonight, won't you?
Actually, I'm going to ask the chairman of the finance committee to announce the bids, because as soon as I'm done with finance committee tonight, I have another meeting that I'd like to go attend.
Right. Well, do you have those with you right there?
It's in here.
Yeah, it's okay. Yeah, you have the bids, how they came in, and really, the $53,900. We had Joseph Henderson check them out, Jim Roberts, and also I can't remember the guy's name. Russell. They checked out and checked some references from them. They all checked out. Okay.
Yeah, the funny part about the bid opening is that Jim Roberts' comment. He said, after everybody left, he says, "Well, that's interesting." Says this is one of those deals where nobody's happy, and says because the low bidder left a lot of money on the table, and the higher bidders were clear out of the game, so nobody's happy.
Well, but the low bidder gets the job. They get the work. So
at
least their frown is not as deep.
It looks like it's going to turn out okay. I don't know. Does the parking committee have to? That's not here.
Yeah.
Would it be?
Was anybody?
Who's on the?
I'm trying to think of why.
And he's not here either.
He's cardboard.
Yeah,
You on the committee too?
Who's on the third?
Deb, Dick, and Brian.
Dick. So Dick can sign it.
Dick can sign it.
If you don't want.
No.
And then what? We'll have the ordinance drawn up for first reading at the next meeting.
We need to waive it.
Waive it.
We need to waive it to get it started.
What you putting down, son?
Yeah, I know.
And
Do we have that in the legislative request?
I have it.
It's not tough.
Why do you want to have an emergency? I put that.
Okay.
So we can start before the cold weather starts.
I need to sign that too, Dick.
Oh, Cletus is?
Yeah.
No, let's.
Ed Cole, Brian Johnson.
Yeah.
So I'm a lone stranger.
So we just like to have that on the next agenda and then waive it.
This is a claims run that lasts 3 years that they use in regards to
You don't have to argue with anyone.
rates.
Yeah, don't have to worry.
Yes.
Okay.
Okay?
I only
Okay,
made one
John,
copy
you
of
wanna
that, but you might.
Start with number two.
Since I
So
know
is
what
this
you
new,
do
is this
now,
new skylight, Bob,
you
gonna
might
like
think
make
that's
it
interesting.
brighter?
It's the
Is it gonna make it like different colors of light? Or is it gonna
The same. Yeah, just the same. But the roofers didn't want anything to do with it.
Yeah.
So we're getting estimates from Richardson Glass and trying to find a second one right now for that.
Sorry.
But again, it comes in about $7,000 less than we thought. And we have to have a skylight because there are no lights
I
in.
try to
And-
have that
Yeah.
complete, but there's always space to mod it right here.
Okay, my work is done.
All right.
See you later, Bob.
See you later.
There's no way I can follow Bob.
I'll try, John.
You could get in trouble.
Yes, that's right. Item number 2, at the last meeting, we had a gentleman in here who asked the city if we could consider establishing an ordinance requiring people to limit the amount of time their trash containers are up front in front of their homes. Council asked us to investigate. We contacted 4 communities. Newark and Dublin both have ordinances that do prescribe the amount of time trash containers can be displayed out in front of the home. Granville and Pataskla, the other 2 we contacted, don't. So the 4, it's 50-50. I won't mention any names in Newark. It wasn't Tim. But I was told that they don't really enforce it too much in Newark, mainly because they don't have the personnel to do it, and Newark's such a large area. So
What is time span?
what they do is, I don't have it here, but they can put, in both cases, they pretty much can put the trash can out the day of the collection, and it has to be removed by the day after the collection. And one of them did establish that it had to be in the back area of the home.
Where they put it?
Where they put it. I do have them back in my office. I can make copies and put them in your baskets if you'd like. So there was, neither one was very wordy, very detailed.
What, did either one of them prescribe the penalty for not adhering to it?
No. I don't know the penalties. That wasn't part of, what we did is we got copies of them, and they didn't establish penalties in the body that we had.
Yeah.
They could be listed someplace in the ordinance or another ordinance. Now, most penalties in Heath for zoning violations are minor misdemeanors, meaning a person could get fined up to $500 a day for the length of time. Yes, sir.
No, I didn't want to interrupt you. Go ahead. I was just going to say that I don't really think it's worth our time to have an ordinance, because here's the thing. You get out on the street and you see a trash can out, okay? Just a can. That doesn't say anyone's on it. You don't know whose trash pickup they have. There's like 5 or 6 different companies who pick up trash up. John has no way of knowing that I have, you know, Shackelford or Rumpke or Big O
Or the data.
or Waste Management.
Not all of them necessarily
Not all-
have the big bins that come
Yeah.
from the trash
So,
companies. that
so
have the
trash is
nice
out there.
stuff.
John goes, well, did they miss the pickup there? Or are they for tomorrow or the next day? Is it a holiday? Is it not? I mean,
Yeah.
you would be
No
chasing
way.
your tail trying to ever figure out.
We don't.
Yeah.
My
Yeah.
trash
Yeah.
can comes at 3:30 in the morning. Does that mean I have to wait until?
3:30 in the morning?
Yeah,
Oh
that's
my
right.
gosh. I tell you what, if a trash truck came by my house at 3:30 in the morning, I'd have an issue with that. What? 3:30?
You got
Yeah,
shot
they
for it?
shouldn't start.
No.
One of ours in our neighborhood comes, I don't know which it is. Rumpke, I think, comes through on Tuesday. Usually on Tuesdays, it's like 6:30
The only way I
or
know is.
6:30 in the morning
I walk
sometimes.
up
They
to
don't
my
pick
chair
ours
one
up, but they pick
morning.
other people's up.
No, Shaq
To the sound of the trash truck?
No,
Oh.
to take my trash out, went out, and he was gone.
Oh my gosh.
About the only way that I could see that we could enforce this ordinance if it were on the books is if there was one trash company that serviced the city, and each area had prescribed dates.
Yeah.
And that's the only way we could really enforce this. Otherwise, we don't really have the faculties to enforce it. There's no way to gauge, as Tim said, whether something's legal or illegal. And plus that, if we send a violation out, they could have taken it in by the time they received the violation, so then they would not be in violation. They can put it out the next week, leave it out for another 2 or 3 days, send another violation if they take it in or not, you know.
Yeah.
So, I mean, you couldn't really ever establish a penalty for doing it.
Unenforceable.
Yeah.
Did we get the name and address of the gentleman who came? I'll have to look through my stuff to see if, I might have written
It
it
should be
down.
part of the record. Well, it was in here, wasn't it?
Yes.
Yeah, it wouldn't be part
It's
of
on
that.
YouTube.
That's right, it is.
It's
You
on
do.
YouTube.
You've got a record.
Yes, I do.
Okay.
I'm just thinking maybe, do you want me to ask, or do you want to ask Lynn to send a communication out to him? I mean, he was interested enough to take his time to come and sit here and talk about it. I think the man at least deserves a response.
Was it in your minutes, please? Your notes? It was in his community development meeting.
Would it be in your?
Yeah.
I'd have to go through my specs.
You probably got it. We'll just give you a chance to see if you got the name.
Hey, Brian, I'm not with myself now. You know, my wife and I, we just took an audit today, not because of this, but my wife, she don't like them sitting out in front of her. Well, what bothers her is them parking them after the garden, they come right in front of their house where they're visible to the street. And there's three, on Whispering Pines, there's 20 or 21 houses, and there's 3 people that I know that leave their garbage can there 7 days a week. It does look bad. It does.
Out at the curb?
No, it's sitting right against front of their house.
That's right, come on.
It's where I put mine, so I have to move one down the bottom of that. But it was always behind Sue's car. So. I've got that moved, so I've been thinking about fixing it. So.
It was like, remember we tried to establish an ordinance limiting where RVs and vehicles could park on properties? And it was really impossible to write it, to make it fairly enforceable. And this is one of those same things.
You're trying to legislate common sense or courtesy.
Well said.
And you
That's
can't do
exactly it. Yeah. You just can't.
There was a thing on TV, Facebook or something, things that homeowners don't notice, you know. That was one of them. And the other one was parking in your grass, parking unused sports equipment. And there's something else. There's about 3 or 4 things that popped up real close.
And we have a book that's 3 or 4 inches thick. It's full of ordinances, full of them. And it's, most of them probably are not enforced just from the viewpoint that you don't and never will have the time to do it. So if you create an ordinance, you want it to be one that's substantial and necessary and enforceable. And I don't know if this falls in the category or not. I'll let you determine that. Anything else on that? If not, item number 3, we're all aware that State Route 13 is closed by the radio station because ODOT is doing some shoulder work. It should be completed and the road reopened by the end of this month. I got an email from ODOT last week. They have also discovered additional work is needed on 13 in that vicinity, a little further north. After you get through where the shoulder repair is being done, and right about where our water tower overlooks the road, you've got these big rock cliffs that you drive through. ODOT is concerned that the sandstone rock could crumble into the road. And what they'd like to do in a couple of years when they resurface 13 is add on to that project and put some kind of a rock wall reinforcing rod at various locations along that strip to help hold the sandstone rock in place so it doesn't cave into the road. So in order to do that, because it's in Heath, they've asked us to approve legislation to authorize them to do it 100% at their cost. And the time for this will be a couple of years down the road when they repay it.
100%, go for it.
So, if that's okay.
That's on the west side.
Both the east and west side of the road.
East and west, the rocks on both sides.
The one on the west or on the east side is what, it seems like it's a lot bigger rocks than that.
I never paid attention to it.
It seems like it's a longer stretch of where that rock sandstone's at, than it's on the other side. On the west side.
And they would like to get that back close to the end of October, so we should have time to have 2 readings on it without any problem.
Why do they need it back so quick? Because they're not going to do it for a long time.
This is preliminary, not final. The preliminary allows them to put it into their program. So, any other questions? If not, item number 4 is I'm going to call it a non-performance. it was my intention, we have the Thornwood Drive paving project, which is going to be done next year. And the city's match is approximately $75,000. It was closer to $96,000, but thanks to Bill Lozier, the county engineer, he was willing to work with us in a couple of different ways, resulting in the cost of the project being lowered by $20,000. So not to get off the subject, but we owe Bill Lozier, thank you for that. Really appreciate his help. Anyway, that has been programmed by ODOT to be sold to a contractor around January of this coming year. And they anticipate construction beginning around the beginning of April of 2014. That time frame does not allow us to seek Ohio Public Works Commission funding. We would, if we applied for funding, and even if we got it in October of this year, that's when we apply, and we would know if we got the funding by December. They don't release funding from this year's application until next July. So the funding would not be available to us to perform the project. Now, I did talk to ODOT. Can the project be rescheduled for later in the year, making us a better candidate for the OPWC funding? And they just got back with me this afternoon, and essentially they were very negative about it. They didn't say it was impossible and it couldn't be done. They said, though, basically, in summary, that to do it would be a pretty big change in their system, requiring a lot of work on their part, and they didn't really want to do it because of that. And I can understand where they're coming from. ODOT has thousands of projects, and each one is scheduled precisely, the funding set aside, all of the documentation, the legislation done, and it's no easy thing once those projects get aligned in their project position to start changing them, going back and forth, because you have to take the funding that's there, relocate it to another fiscal year, and change a lot of things. So they're not really happy about trying to do something like that. So in essence, it doesn't appear that we'll get OPWC funding for this particular project. That's the bad news. There is good news though. By selling it early in the year, that generally gives us a better price than when they sell it later in the year, in June, July, or August. Because at the beginning of the year, the contractors are trying to set up their projects. And so they all bid very heavily on the initial projects coming in for the early part of the year. And they bid lower prices because of that in an attempt to get those projects. So we should, don't hold me to this, unfortunately it's on YouTube, thanks to Becky, but we should get a much better price because it's bid early. The other thing is with OPWC projects, the city does not get a project every year. If we're lucky, we get one every other year. Now this coming year would have been that other year to get it. If we don't apply for one, we would apply for one the next year, which would be for the Hopewell Drive paving project. And as strangely as this seems, in order to get
that paving is scheduled for 15.
16. 16.
Okay.
So what we do, it's scheduled for the summer of 16. So what we do is in the fall of 14, next year, we have to apply for that. So OPWC cycle of funding matches with ODOT's cycle of funding. And you've got different calendar years, and the funding expires at different times. So it's a puzzle that you have to watch very closely. So we have, if we apply next year for OPWC funding, it would be for the Hopewell Drive project, because we haven't had a project in a couple of years, because it's a good project and meets all the criteria, we'll have a very good chance of getting that funding. So there is an upside to it. The downside is we will have to provide the match for the Thornwood Drive project. Now, when we have to provide it, I'm not sure yet. ODOT usually requires us to provide the funding, our match, before they actually sell the project. So we could see sometime, maybe in December, legislation coming from ODOT to provide the match, to appropriate the money and provide the match. I'm not sure, I'm just gonna guess that.
And then you go out to bid and the project is done in the spring.
That's right, that's right. So anyway, it's good news, but then it's bad news, but that's some good news mixed in too. Yes, sir.
I'm sorry, if when they put it out to bid, if it comes in under we could get some of that match back, right?
Yes, yeah.
Yeah.
Once the
Or it could
project,
work the other way, it could work
Yeah.
against us too, you know, if it's higher.
it could be higher, which it was with the Hopewell Drive Bridge, or it could be lower, which it was with the bike path. We got $100,000 back with bike path, but we had to pay an extra $15,000 for the bridge. You don't really know. I am way beyond guessing that stuff anymore. I hit the wrong 100% of the time. So, but I wanted to give you an update on that. Are there any questions? If not, item number 5, there's a little known detention pond in Willow Ridge, and that is below Kimberly Court. Last year, AEP, which has power lines running in an easement to the west of Willow Ridge, between Willow Ridge and Blue Jay Road, came in and they removed all the old poles and replaced them with new poles. When they did that, they cleaned out all of their easement to make way for the construction people. What they did when they cleaned out the easement is they didn't realize it, but they wiped out a detention pond that serviced the lower part of Willow Ridge. We got with them, and they did, instead of replacing the detention pond, they put in what they call a water dispersement system, which they said does the same thing. You just don't dig a hole in the ground. So we said, okay, let's see how it'll work. And it actually worked pretty well. It slowed the water down as it was supposed to under normal rain conditions. But about 6 weeks ago, we had the deluge and it actually washed out their whole system. So we met, and the mayor met with AEP at the site, and they are going to work with us to put in a new detention pond. What we're going to do is kind of go half and half. Right now it hasn't been formalized yet, but if the city supplies the materials, which is essentially dirt, which we've got plenty of, to form the pond, they'll do the labor. That's what we're hoping will happen. We haven't agreed formally on it, but that was what was suggested and agreed to per suggestion. So we're working on that now, just to let you know.
So our raw
I was
material
wondering.
is free.
Well, our raw material is, for instance, the quarry in the back by the street department.
We have an ample supply.
Yeah, plenty of that, plus we've got a big amount of dirt here. So
Also, we got a bunch of dirt being taken out of the water plant.
there we go. So we got plenty of dirt, and that's all we really need.
But the question is, where is that water plant dirt going? Can we divert it to a pile someplace that we can then access when we want that? So let's talk to John Geller.
Okay, that's a good point. I didn't know that. Even if we don't use that, we've got plenty more.
Because they're digging that hole now.
That's right. That's right.
John, is that retention pond, is that the one that comes down behind that gentleman's house?
No.
Yeah. Oh,
This is,
Okay, now
when you
that's
go up
another-
Kimberly Court, when you go up Kimberly Court,
Oh, okay,
before you get up to the very top,
right.
if you were heading up there, if you would just take a left and cut through a yard, you would,
Okay.
there's the clearing where the power lines are. And that's where, because you've got Piedmont that comes down this way and Kimberly goes like this and then comes like that. So this is taking all this
Yeah.
water and taking it right there. And in this clearing where the utility lines are, that's where this
Well, the reason
disbursement system was.
The reason I said something about that is that I didn't know whether the street department was going up and clean that out. Because
No, you're talking about on Berkshire.
on Berkshire.
Yeah, no, this is different.
But what we're going to do is we'll take the clean out material from Berkshire and apply it to this project if we can, to help. So we don't have to really dispose of the dirt. 2 different projects in the same community. Item number 6, the Thornwood Drive culvert that I've been talking about for 3 years. They're finally beginning work theoretically this week. The first thing they're going to do is reroute the water line that's next to it. And then next week on September 9th, they're supposed to close the road right at the location of the culvert. And it should be closed for no longer than 21 days. And ODOT is supposed to alert the media. I've already contacted the schools, both Lakewood and Heath.
Okay.
So it should be down for no more than 21 days.
So we're gonna have Route 13 and Thornwood Drive closed at the same time.
Right. And I'm thinking, why stop
Wait
there?
a minute. When is this culvert replacement going to happen?
It's going to be closed on the 9th of September.
Okay.
But this one, at least it's an easy most of the traffic will go down Lee's Road to Canyon Road.
And shouldn't
Some
13
of
be opening up? I mean, that was what, a 45-day closure at the beginning of August?
13 will be opened up at the end of this month.
At the end of September?
Right. But this closure here doesn't really, the two aren't connected
Yeah.
in no other way than,
For some reason, I was thinking that we closed that on like August 5th or August 6th,
oh,
and it was 13.
Yeah.
It was closed on August, and it was supposed to be a 45-day closure.
Yeah.
Are you saying that the project's running over?
not that I know of.
Okay.
I'm just reading the signs at the project site, and then they were
They were saying at one time it was ahead of schedule.
Yeah.
This is beautiful weather.
I was out there last week, and I just talked to the guy there, and he said they're on schedule. Yeah, so. But in any case, I don't anticipate that being a problem.
It's really different traffic
Pattern,
patterns.
right.
So
Yeah.
Yeah. Plus, you got a shaking.
Going from Jacktown to East Newark or West Newark.
I mean, you could even take James Parkway as a detour, then 79, then Canyon Road. So there are multiple detours here, whereas there only is one.
How are they marking the detour on that culvert?
They're supposed to be putting up signs. I think we should see them this week, because they're supposed to put them up at least a week before. I haven't been out there today, but if they're on schedule.
And this is the old WPA project culvert, right?
Yes, yeah.
Man, I tell you what, they
Fresh
did
in
stuff
there.
right back then.
And you know what? Twice in the last
Almost 80 years?
80 years.
Gosh, that's impressive. Here
twice.
you go, Kent. Do some research on that WPA project. Do a story on the history of that deal.
What's impressive is twice in about the last 5 weeks, it's been hit by vehicles
That's why
in
we're
the same spot.
Yeah, that's why we're. And I bet the vehicles took a lot more damage
They
than
did.
the concrete.
They did. Yeah.
Poor vehicle.
Yeah. So anyway, now, almost coinciding with that, item number 7, we've talked about paving Irvingwood Drive between the railroad track and Thornwood Drive. We had a pre-construction meeting about 10 days ago with a contractor, small paving, whatever, anyway. And we were concerned about having Thornwood Drive closed while they had Irvingwood Drive closed for paving, because it's going to be closed for at least a day to 2 days, that one section while they pave. So we reached an agreement with the contractor that we would delay paving Irvingwood Drive between the railroad track and Thornwood Drive until the culvert reopened again, because the detour route for the culvert is that section of Irvingwood Drive. And there was no problem there, other than now that one small section of Irvingwood Drive won't be paved until the beginning of October, sometime in there. So, but it's better than having 2 detours at once.
When did asphalt plants usually close? End of October?
Thanksgiving.
Oh, Thanksgiving?
Yeah. So they've got plenty of time. It's just that it's something we've been talking about for 6 months and wanted to get done. And it's just one of those things that,
When you close Irvingwood, you gonna do it right at the railroad crossing or down past that other road?
what they'll do is they'll actually be closed at Keller. They'll have traffic, allow traffic to go between the railroad tracks and Keller, and then it'll be closed from Keller to Thornwood. Any questions on that? Since we're
And just what, then take it down to a single lane in between Keller and the railroad track?
right,
and
that's
do
what
that.
they'll do. Yeah,
Flag it.
flag it.
And-
Yeah.
That can't be more.
That's only going to be
Yeah.
1 or 2 days max. So that's going to be
Skinny little
short.
road.
That's going to be short.
They're gonna mill it and
They're going to mill it, pave it, make some cutouts of bad areas and fill them back in. That's right. Since we're on Thornwood Drive, item number 8, there's another culvert on Thornwood Drive that has to be replaced before we do the paving next spring. And we have an agreement with the county that we'll take care of Thornwood Drive's surface, they'll take care of all the culverts. So the county, Bill Lozier again,
We have a verbal agreement. I don't think we've signed the maintenance agreement yet, but I've asked David Morrison to get that
Okay.
done so we can
okay.
get an
good,
actual maintenance agreement signed and in place. But
Okay.
yeah, we definitely have an agreement in principle. So.
And Bill Lozier is acting on that verbal agreement, yes, sir.
both these culverts designed for God knows when the Super 2 might ever come to fruition.
The
They're
culvert,
designed for the width and the specs.
the 1933 culvert we're replacing is designed for supersized Thornwood Drive. The culvert I'm talking about now will be designed for the Thornwood Drive as we see it now, because if we had to design it for the supersize, we'd have to buy right-of-way for it. And we need to get that culvert replaced before we do the paving, so there's no time to buy the right-of-way. However, the material that we're using can be extended very easily by just adding to it. So if a year from now we wanted to extend that culvert, we just buy the right-of-way, drop in a couple of sections of pipe, and it's extended. So it's being designed and placed in a method that will allow it to be easily extended should we enlarge the size of the road. Right. So what Bill Lozier has agreed to do is replace the culvert for us. This culvert is located about 150 feet south of the intersection of Seminary Road and Thornwood Road. And so he's agreed to replace that for us before we actually do the paving of the road. So in the next 5 months or 6 months, that'll be replaced probably. So we have a lot of activity on Thornwood Drive in the next 6 months.
Much closure for that.
Probably 3 to 4 days. Say a week max, because that's a lot easier to put in than the big box culvert they're replacing now. Okay. Item number 7, Jenna and Eddie Hunt, Jenna Walker and Eddie Hunt, have been working for the last month, when they have time, on redesigning all of the zoning department forms that we have on the city's webpage. Right now, you can download the forms, then just fill them out and fax or email or send them in. What they're doing is they're making these interactive forms. What do you call it? Where you can just type on the form
And then print it out from the.
and then print it out,
Yeah.
right? And they're doing a great job. It's taking a lot of time. But all of our forms for rezonings, for lot splits, for BCPA, are all being put into that type of a format. So it's really a pretty great idea, and I want to compliment them both for doing a great job. Also, something I'm going to say, it's not on here, is you're aware Eddie Hunt applied for over a year and a half ago and received funding for from the Department of Natural Resources for Parks Department improvement, for playground equipment and stuff. And he's basically the project manager for that. And they've already received the materials, and the mayor has already negotiated with Robertson Construction to install it at no cost. So they're supposed to do that sometime this month, I believe.
I think you're right.
So
The idea is that Robertson was going to, put the posts and things like that, in the ground to make
Okay.
sure that they're done right. And then we had discussed the idea of having a lot of community involvement on the day that we actually assemble the playground equipment on those support posts and things like that. So the date, for that is to be determined, but I know that there are a number of community volunteer organizations. I know the high school has, what's it called, Bulldog Volunteers. And the vocal music director at the high school contacted me asking if there were projects that the choir kids could get involved in. And so I don't think we'll have a problem finding manpower on the day that we decide to try to tighten the screws down on the equipment itself. But I don't have a date yet for when that's going to happen.
but I just wanted to give Eddie a compliment on that.
Logwood Park and Granville's built that very same way.
So kudos to Eddie for doing a great job on that. The next item is development. We have quite a bit of development going on now in front and behind the scenes. And as you're aware, thanks to the article that the Advocate wrote, thank you, Ken, Southgate Corporation is constructing a spec building on a lot in front of the Samuel Stratton building on James Parkway. They actually began today to do that. We haven't had a final approval of the whole plan yet, but we've had a sketch approval which allows them to get started on leveling the ground and compacting it and stuff like that. Another building that is under review is the Zantec Corporation is building a rehabilitation facility on Heath Road that will employ about 50 skilled jobs. And we're reviewing that sketch plan now. And so there are two nice additions to the city of Heath that are going
Do you
in.
think both of those would be ready for a planning commission review in September?
Well, the sketch plan review for the rehabilitation, we actually looked at and reviewed when we did the lot split.
Mhm.
So.
I mean, like, for the building.
Oh, yeah. Well, we contacted them. It's up to the developer to have that information for us.
Yeah.
But both know the deadline for the September meeting, and I think both are striving to get it.
Okay.
So
Do we need a special meeting for on the fast track, or they just simply won't be ready?
they haven't indicated one way or the other. But the planning commission has volunteered to have special meetings if necessary to accelerate the process for having plan review. Both buildings, I believe, they want under construction before the end of the year.
That's what.
So, yeah, I mean, they better have it by the end of September, I would think.
So, yeah.
And if they need to push it up a week or so.
Yeah.
in the interest
Just
of-
let us know.
in the interest of weather, since they're pressed for weather already, if we can buy them another week or whatever, we're willing.
Yeah, they're aware, they're very
They're
aware
aware.
that they were completely flexible to their schedules.
Okay.
Also, I'm just gonna say, there are other things going on behind the scenes that are not project ready. They're not, yes, we're gonna go, that kind of stuff, but we've talked with other people, and it's very interesting, let me just say that. And then there are other things that are going on. Now, Kokonis, if you've come by lately, they finally began construction on it. That's going on, they anticipate to open in the spring sometime. So this year has.
Do they expect to have everything, like the exterior all buttoned up and then just work on the inside improvements through the winter?
I believe so. The way they're going now, that's what it looks like, because
That's
they're
what I
building
was
the
saying.
framing and everything right now.
Yeah, yeah. That'll be good.
So, I mean, this has been a good year. We haven't had a year like this in a long time. Residential construction is increasing. So we're doing well. We're getting a lot of discussion in regard to commercial development, which is the stuff that hasn't been solidified yet. We can't go into any depth on. But things are moving along. We're looking pretty darn good. Any questions on that? Item number 11. Gentleman came in last week, and I can feel for him. He lives over in Greenbrier Estates, and every night people walk their dogs in front of his house. Every night dogs take dumps in front of his house, and he's upset about it. And he came in and he showed me the sign that his wife downloaded. He said, "Can the city," I don't know if you want to pass that around, "put signs like that up in subdivisions where people walk their dogs?" Well, I don't know if the city can do that or not. And I'm not suggesting we pass an ordinance about dogs taking dumps in front of someone's houses. But what we may want to do is maybe allow citizens, just a thought, we don't have to make an agreement on this tonight. If we had signs that we spec, a citizen could buy a sign like this, this size, this shape. And if you wanted to buy it, and if you wanted to put it up on a stop sign or a speed sign or something like that close to your house, allow them to do it. Therefore, if the citizens were interested in advertising in their neighborhoods that, hey, we don't want dogs dumping, and they wanted a sign, we could spec a standardized sign that they might want to purchase and install on their own. And Becky hasn't had the opportunity because I just asked her, but I've asked Dr. Sign if they could even, maybe give us an approximate cost on that stuff. So does that make sense to you? Yes, sir.
About your sign ordinance, I mean, it's really not gonna be a city sign, correct?
It's not going to be a city sign.
So you'd have to rewrite or modify your sign ordinance, correct?
Well, what we could say is it's a city-approved sign.
Okay.
So if it's a city-approved sign, then it can go on any of our fixtures.
So it's gonna be on the city post.
Right.
It's affixed to a city asset.
Well, if we're saying, okay, if we develop the specifications for the sign, we say, okay, this is a public sign, but if you want it installed, you have to purchase it yourself and install it. Then they can install it on one of our devices.
So it's basically a city sign that the city's not paying for.
Right. If
I
someone
think I
wants,
just go outside and tell the people to clean up their dog.
don't I wish?
I think you really.
Will this be much of a deterrent, or even just?
I don't know if it'll work at all, to be honest with you. I'm just coming up with an idea where the city doesn't have to have any output as far as money goes, but yet it might help to satisfy some of the citizens' attitudes towards this.
What does leash curb mean? Leash dash curb.
That's
What
just
does that mean?
coming up.
You should
They
have
have
them
to
on
have,
a leash.
they have to have them on a leash.
Curb your dog with a leash.
Yeah.
That's what I mean.
And go to the curb with it.
Maybe we could do that with children too, because I can think of a lot of children. But anyway, I thought about this. The gentleman's initial idea was, let's have the city do it. And I thought, well, I don't know if we want to get into this, but he has a point that a lot of people complain about. So if someone wants to complain about it, maybe they'd be willing to do something about it on their own at their expense. Just give them the authority to do it by putting it on a city fixture. So I don't know what your opinion is.
What makes his yard so special?
Maybe it's the
So well
fertilizer.
fertilized.
Type of grass. Yeah.
Why do they want the?
I don't have a dog anymore. I don't want nothing in my front yard.
Oh, but why him? Just-
What's the same thing? We could put some down in the parks, especially where Hoback Park is.
Except you're not supposed to have dogs in the park.
Well, on Hoback
That's
you
on.
can, yeah.
Yeah.
And of course, maybe we should put up where you shouldn't have them either. But I was thinking it'd be kind of nice even to have a couple of those made and put them up on the city walk path in Hoback Park and along maybe even all the way to the Port Authority.
They can have a baseball park where there's no sign, no dogs. Dog, no sign.
But anyway, for the most part, it would be, if a citizen wants it, it's available to them at their expense. Kind of like a custom deluxe license plate. If you want it, you pay for it. I don't know.
So once
I
it's
think
up,
that
it
and a
stays
quarter
up?
would get you a cup of coffee, but yeah.
Once it's up, it stays up. What if they on the sign, they say, oh, I'm moving, I'm gonna take my sign with me.
Yeah, I'm not even
You know,
gonna go there. I
all
don't
these
know.
little
Yeah, you can come up with
scenarios.
everything, but anyway, it's an option, or you don't have to do anything.
I was gonna bring you one of our stickers left over from the dog paddle. The station.
Well, why don't we do this? Instead of reaching a decision tonight, hopefully by the next meeting, Becky will have time to price this out for us. And then we can bring it up and just discuss it for a few minutes at the next meeting. Is that okay? Okay. Any other questions? One other thing I want to do involves Becky and Dr. Stein. Hopefully this week our new fall banners will be installed on 79.
An ordinance, in 50508, nuisance condition prohibited. No person shall keep or harbor any animal or fowl in the municipality so as to create noxious or offensive odors or unsanitary conditions which are a menace to the health or safety of the public.
Right, we have an ordinance that states you're not supposed to do that, but we have about 1,500 people with dogs and cats that do it anyway. So,
I think that means you can't have a cow
well,
or a hog farm in the city.
what it is, some people actually never clean up after their animals. They have a backyard that's fenced in, for instance, and the dogs go out there and they take their dumps, and it stays there and it stays there on a hot summer day like last week. You know it, and that's why it's there. And we have used that
That's what the
section.
law director showed me.
Yeah.
There's several along in there that, you can twist it, to make it work, because say you're supposed to be under, your animal is, unless it's hunting dog, it's got to be under your control at all times. But it don't say on a leash, but under your control, but when he said if he can speak, turn that dog, he's under control, but if he can't, he's not under control.
Right.
But I think, down through the years, I'm sorry, but that's one thing I hate about allowing people to have dogs. They're so nasty with them. I've had at least 5 people call me this year, which honestly, about people that their dogs crap in their yard. Well, that shouldn't be allowed. In the Strongsville, where my daughter lives, it's a $100 fine or what.
Rudy always seems to go fairly early in our walks, which means I get to carry the bag of poop around the rest of the walk.
My wife and I both go down to Hoback Park a lot and walk our dogs, and we each carry 2 bags apiece, two for each dog. But you know, unfortunately, 75% of the people don't do that. And on the walk path, you come across big blobs of dog food. And it's just disgusting. But in any case, why don't you just think if you want to do anything? So I'm just trying to come up with a possible solution that doesn't cost us any money, doesn't cause us to create an ordinance, but it does make something available to citizens if they're interested in it. And the last thing really quick, it's not on here, I just wanted to say is in the next couple of days, hopefully the full banners will go on 79. We've got a few posts where the bottom one has come loose, they've got to put that back on. But these are really nice banners, and you'll really like them. And matter of fact, now Jenna and Becky and I got to sit down and start working on the winter banners. So, but the banner program, which was the mayor's idea,
You got them sponsored out, right?
every one of them is sponsored.
That's great.
So, and that's great. And then these things can be used year after year after year. We collect all the money off them, and we don't have to pay hardly anything other than to change the sponsor's name. That's all I've got, Cletus. Okay.
Okay. Anybody have any questions? John or Mayor or Heath? It's over.
Ready for finance? Anybody need a break? We okay to go with finance here? This ought to be good. We have 10, 15 minutes tops.
Thanks, John.
Everybody have an agenda? What's an agenda? Everybody have a bar graph? What's a bar graph?
Yep.
Okay, 6:18, we'll call Finance Committee to order. First item. Appropriate $19,296 for a change order for replacing the 2 lift stations in the wastewater departments. Additional agreement with Terra Valley Excavating, of Belleville, Ohio, to replace the 2 lift stations. Please, it's you and I.
Just good.
Any other comments from anybody else?
John does a good job on that.
Yes, he does. Okay.
On that project, my understanding is they've completed the final bore. That Fox Run lift station should be decommissioned here soon, which means that all that will then be rapid, which is good.
Okay. Item 2. ODOT Rockwall was discussing community development zoning, Rockwall reinforcement on State Route 13. No cost to the city. Install rock bolts in the rock walls on both sides of the sandstone. Cletus? No problem? Anybody else comments? Third item, appropriate $53,900 within the capital improvement fund and enter into a contract with Smith Roofing to replace the water park pool roof to complete the project before cold weather starts. Comes out of Mr. Morrow's department. Anything else to add? Committee? Cletus, you okay with this?
Yes, sure.
Any comments? And on that same project, separate legislative request, appropriate amount not to exceed $21,000 within the capital improvement fund to install and purchase a skylight for the water park roof. Complete project before the cold weather starts. Mr. Morrow, anything else to add?
Nope.
Cletus?
Okay.
This is for legislative requests. Turn it over to Mr. Alexander for further comments.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. 2 items. I I've been consumed for last several business days with the approximately 35 items that were items the police department had secured, some of which were from some mail order crimes, mail fraud crimes, and various ways that police departments get stuff, evidence, been released by the courts. And I thought that this stuff maybe wouldn't sell so well in our impound lot auction, so I ran it on eBay. I believe I copied the auction information to each of you through your city emails.
I can't get that email. I've got a newer version of email and the city's just not up to that.
Oh.
I can't get it.
Well, I'm sorry. You probably should check with Jenna and
She's
figure out how.
working on it,
Okay.
but she said they wouldn't be able to help me until we get, unless I would go back to an older version, and there's no way I can.
Okay. Anyways, the sales were a little over $1,800. I've collected, I think, all but about $560. I think 6 items left to have heard from the winning bidders, and it all went well. I kind of enjoy that stuff, but it is labor intensive.
What did the TV end up going for?
$520, which is a good buy. I went down to Best Buy and priced the exact same brand, inches, and all the specifications, with the exception of this TV was last year's model, and the new model is a different model number. The new model has no additional options or features that the old one had. So really, for all intents and purposes, they had it listed at $800. Well, of course, $800, you had to pay sales tax on top of that. So this TV selling at $520 was a bargain for
You
somebody.
said some of that stuff went to Norway, huh?
Yeah, a bunch of crossbow stuff. I think maybe 6 or 7 items all went to the same bidder in Norway. So anyway, that's just, yeah, all of this revenue,
11 months out of the
less expenses, will go into the law enforcement fund. The other thing, I just renewed the city's casualty insurance. It runs September 1 to September 1 is the fiscal year for the casualty insurance. That's the automobile insurance, the buildings, the liability insurance, the city's package of casualty insurance. And the renewal this year jumped up pretty significantly, and I was kind of taken aback a little bit initially, but our insurance agent that we've been working with since 2005, I asked him to provide us a history of what our premiums have been, and you'll see it on that chart. And so the renewal is a little bit high, in large part that over the last 3 years we've had $431,000 in claims. And you might, right off the top, think, oh, what in the world do we have claims? Well, we had a tornado that hit the Shea House. There's almost $250,000 there. We had that derecho that anyway, there's a lot of smaller things. I brought along what they call a 3-year claims run. Anybody I'm not going to kill trees and print this thing up, but anybody that's interested in this. So realistically, when you look at what our premiums were the last 4 years, that's less. That's less than
Heath, this runs from September 1st down to
Yes.
September 1st. next year.
Mhm.
Okay, thank you.
This was auto too, right? This was a police car that,
Yeah, there's a liability with that claim could be ongoing, because that's fairly recent. But anyway, I think this insurance agent and insurance agency has done us a really good job. And when he arrived, he saved us money over the previous year. I don't have a recollection of what we paid in 2004. But this guy has worked hard. He's shopped every year. We've moved insurance around, and you can see what that rate has been. You don't normally see insurance rates going down over the course of a period of time, but I thought that was meaningful. The only other thing I'll mention is for caucus, there's an ordinance 77. You'll notice that is an emergency. I'd appreciate if you guys would suspend the rules and go ahead and pass that. We've got a couple positions that are determinant on that passing. One is the new assistant auditor, a la administrative assistant finance classified. And she's supposed to start on September 23rd. And you're probably also aware that you've approved a position of supervisor of water collections. We can't proceed with that until that gets done. And if the finance chairman will read the bids for me, I'm out of here.
Hey, you know what?
well done.
You watch the news where they young some people over Franklin County about reducing their gas bill. I got that same call this morning, and I asked him. I asked her. I said, "What? I know he's a man." I said, "What do you want?" He said, "Well, I want you to get some information that can reduce your gas bill." I said, "How?" And he started saying, "Well, if you're on gas, Columbia Gas or something else." I said, "Well, I'm a step ahead of it." I said, "I'm on what?" And I said, "They gave me change." Okay, bang, he hung up. And then it got about an hour later, I listened to the news, the same guy, he's picking them for personal information, so they can get into their account.
Anything else? Anything else?
Thanks, Heath.
Yeah, thank you. Thanks, guys.
Okay, we are adjourned at 6:29.
We'll take a break until 7. Deb Cole sent me a message. She's tied up at work. That's why she's not here, but she will be here for council. So, and then Brian had some business he had to take care of. He'll be back for council. So, so we should have a full council until meeting time.
I got Chuck Moore from the Food Fair is going to be here. And, September is Hunger Action Month, so I got a proclamation in support of that.
Okay.
I think Chuck's going to be here.
Could you call Joe if there's anything tonight at council?
Sure. Anything unusual?
Yeah.
Anything
Exciting.
Okay. Yeah, if something's off the agenda or whatever, I'll let you know.
All right.
Thanks.
All right, I'll see you.
Take it easy.
See the drill bit they pulled out of the ground over there by me?
All for the boring?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I happened to be looking out when they did that. Yeah, just a little thing. There's a piece of pipe as long or longer than that. They lost like 6 trees too, doing that.
Did that shake your margaritas?
Well, I didn't have any margaritas, but it shook a lot.
So,
I haven't had a margarita forever.